Health Secretary said it was his job as an MP to go where the people are and not to sit in ivory towers in Westminster. Comments come after the Conservative Party decided to suspend the whip from Mr Hancock over his decision. The suspect in the firebombing of a Dover immigration centre is reported to have been posting anti-Muslim content on Facebook. Kent police have named the man as 66-year-old Andrew Leake from High Wycombe in Buckinghamshire. He was found dead at a nearby service station shortly after the attack. Counter-terrorism police are now leading the investigation. They say the attack was likely to have been driven by some form of hate-filled grievance. Meanwhile, the Conservative Party says several hundred migrants were today removed from the immigration processing centre in Manston in Kent. At least 2 coaches left as part of the Home Secretary's plan to relieve pressure on the facility, with more to follow later in the week. Around 4,000 people were thought to be housed at Manston, which was originally built to hold a maximum of 1,600. Royal Mail workers will stage 2 48-hour strikes around Black Friday and Cyber Monday in an escalating row over pay and conditions. Members of the Communication Workers Union will walk out on November the 25th and then again on the 28th. They'll replace strikes originally planned for the 12th and 14th. Royal Mail made an offer on Monday worth 9% over 2 years. However, the CWU will recommend to its members that they reject the offer. And exit polls are suggesting Benjamin Netanyahu could be poised to make a political comeback after the Israeli elections. The former Prime Minister and his right-wing bloc could take up to 62 seats in the 120-seat Knesset. However, the final result isn't expected to be confirmed until later on in the week. Mr Netanyahu's currently on trial over corruption charges, all of which he denies. That's it. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. You're with GB News, the People's Channel, where now it's time for Headliners.
Hello, good evening. I'm Simon Evans. Welcome to Headliners. Joining me tonight, 2 top comedians. They're smart, they're funny, they'll tickle your tummy. It's Leo Kearse and Roger Monkhouse. Good evening, gentlemen.
Hello.
Have you got your tickling digits ready to go?
I got long arms.
It can be entirely metaphorical, the tickling, if that makes you more comfortable. Roger, our debut together. You've done a couple of these already, I believe.
Yes. They've been fun so far. I look forward to tonight.
I'm completely oblivious as to your political leaning, so I shall be looking forward to negotiating and navigating that.
I'm sure it will become clear.
Let's take a look at tomorrow's front pages. We start with the Daily Mail. They have thousands of corrupt police on our streets. Bombshell report reveals even criminals or those with gang links are being allowed to join the ranks. And a photograph of Matt Hancock, who is in disgrace for going and joining I'm a Celebrity. We'll be looking at both those stories. The Eye leads with new £880 hike to Britain's mortgage bills. That's a new one. The Bank of England are expected to raise interest rates tomorrow by 0.75 points to 3% in an attempt to dampen inflation and bring down the government. No, that's just opinion. The Guardian leads with revealed secret war game plans to cope with 7-day blackout. These were drawn up some time ago, of course, and Hancock's a celebrity and he's suspended. That will be one of his jungle traumas, no doubt. Vetting of police lets predators join force. Another alternative jungle trauma, the predator. The Financial Times reads, bumper earnings raise pressure on oil majors to help ease cost of living crisis. And end of the line for the fax machine as Ofcom poised to scrap telecoms rules. I can't believe I just recently completely kitted out the home with fax machines. Bad timing yet again. The Mirror leads with the man with no shame. That is, of course, Matt Hancock and I'm a Celeb Jury. And COVID families outrage after ex-Health Secretary joins show. The Times leads with criminals and sexual predators join the police. Watchdog lambasts forces for letting, given it the French pronunciation there, forces for vetting failures. And Musk hits Twitterati with monthly fee. I'm not sure we're covering that story. It's quite intriguing. The Sun reads, I'm a Celeb Hancock exclusive. I haven't lost my marbles, But I'm off to join the creepy crawlies, and finally the Daily Star with creepy crawly Coco, immediately disputing the previous headline, ex-clown in the jungle. You've got to feel sorry for the bugs. Those were your front pages. Let's take a look inside. So we kick off the front page of the Times, and vetting failures, at least one assumes they're failures in our police force, Leah.
Yeah, they're definitely failures. A report has just been released that has revealed that there are a lot of criminals and sexual predators that have been allowed to join the police due to failures in vetting. So obviously, you know, if you join the police, you go through, you know, a process where they check your background and make sure you're appropriate for the job. But apparently it's not been working. They've accepted applicants with convictions for robbery, indecent exposure and domestic abuse. One recruit was a pimp, and others, I mean, that's gonna help him discipline his girls. Be like, you know, I'm gonna arrest you, as well as slap you with the back of my hand. And others have been lying about the family's involvement in serious crime, including drug dealing. So apparently there are as many as thousands of corrupt officers working in England and Wales. So I assume this report came about because of Wayne Couzens.
Yes.
And, you know, the revelations following that. Yeah. So it turned out, you know, the vetting wasn't particularly thorough with Wayne Couzens. His nickname was actually The Rapist. So, you know, if you can actually have a nickname, The Rapist, and, you know, still be employed as a police officer, then, you know, there's some failures there.
That was an ironic nickname, I suppose, intended to be ironic.
Well, I had this conversation the other day. Of course, people in hospitals, the medical profession, are allowed to have a dark sense of humour, but the police aren't, by and large. And I think that's perhaps an indication of double standard.
Well, Harold Chipman's not.
Can I just clarify, and it might not even have been clear from the story, but is your impression that vetting processes failed to sort of highlight or illuminate these people's past, or they saw it and just sort of waved it through and went, well, he's got a history of domestic abuse, but I'm sure he's mended his ways now. Do you know what I mean?
I've been through some of these vetting procedures. In fact, because I used to be a criminal intelligence analyst, so when I stopped, I was going through DV vetting, which is the highest level. But I think for the police, it's just it's either CTC, so counter-terror checks, or SE, which is just security clearance.
Right.
And, you know, basically they check your sort of financials and stuff like that. But if you don't have any convictions, there's not, you know, they don't go that deep. With DV vetting, so the highest level, they check, they even go as far as interviewing ex-girlfriends and friends and family and stuff to really.
So these people, they might not have convictions, but they may have been questioned before. Is it that sort of thing?
And you can have connections with people. I mean, I should imagine if they've been questioned or if there've been anything, that would come up on Criment or whatever, you know, system.
Bureaucracy involved in extensive vetting is, of course, unthinkable, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's really impracticable. And it's always said that the police are a microcosm of society, and of course, inevitably, therefore, there are a percentage of wrong-uns.
Well, you might even say, I suppose you might make the case that it wouldn't hurt the police to have some people in who've seen the wrong side of the law.
Well, there's an argument that, of course, criminals and the police are all part of the same industry.
Yes.
So it's not that surprising, is it?
The criminal police, what do they call it? Like the military-industrial complex.
Absolutely,
yeah. But there is possibly that there may even be some sort of extent to which the brains are wired similarly. I mean, I don't know. You're sort of drawn into the same company.
Well, of course, the problem becomes manifest, doesn't it, if there is a disproportionate number of wrong-uns in the police force and who are clearly attracted to the service because of the opportunities that the service provides.
Yeah. So just being a priest might attract the wrong...
Well, I mean, they have addressed that for years. But genuinely, I mean, I remember the Sweeney. It was essentially predicated on the fact that they all went to the same pubs, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
You know, and it was probably, there was just more of a culture of looking the other way.
They might have to look at changing how vetting actually works, because at the moment about 3/4 of the vetting is sort of purely financial, to see if you can be blackmailed if you're in any financial trouble.
Yes, The front page of The Guardian now, and the government are prepping for blackouts. Roger, this could be an exciting winter.
Yes, absolutely. A very exciting winter. And this is a Guardian exclusive, and it's The Guardian doing what it does best, which is joyfully predicting a Tory-induced apocalypse and calamity.
Warming its hands over the candles of the nation's woe.
Absolutely. Unsurprisingly and uncontentiously, really, they show that ministers will prioritise getting food, water and shelter to the young young and elderly people, as well as those with caring responsibilities, if the country experiences blackouts, with the Met Office warning that Britain faces a higher risk of a cold winter. These are entirely responsible war games. Of course they are, in any situation.
And in fact, they predate the invasion of Ukraine, don't they?
So, and it's entirely appropriate, although they are apparently being shock tested and newly rehearsed as a consequence of the current situation. But it does highlight what is undoubtedly a serious issue, which is that the price issue, the cost of energy, which is, of course, what's framed debate thus far, is generated by the scarcity of supply, which is something which has been addressed in other countries, and I rather suspect not here.
Well, the very fact that Truss's first thing, the one punch she landed was to essentially eliminate the possibility that the price might dampen the
characteristic cheery, sunny approach tonight.
Yes, we'll make it free. That sort of thing.
Absolutely, which is preposterous. Whereas, of course, in Europe, they're switching off, as I understand it. They're switching off street lighting at certain times, therefore reducing, obviously, consumption, which makes such a lot of sense, doesn't it?
I mean, street lighting in Greece.
Yeah, that's right. I think the cold is going to be a more... I mean, we always call it blackouts, but it's actually warm outs that you've got to worry about.
Well, and this is the thing. We've had I think it might have been the warmest October this year.
Yeah.
And, so people...
consumption is well down, consequently.
Consumption is well down. And this is because of climate change. Climate change has made us warmer, so we're less dependent on fossil fuels. We're beating Putin. Is there anything climate change can't do?
I said years ago, it was on a BBC panel game, that I said Putin had underestimated the extent to which global warming had reduced Russia's great joker, which was always the cold winters. They would always play on that.
As a thought exercise, it's worth imagining, isn't it, what would happen without any kind of government underpinning or capping of the price, and that would, of course, induce mass insulation programmes and economy of consumption, which would reduce the risk of such blackouts, the sort of blackouts we're talking about.
Well, they've had... I mean, it does prove, I'm afraid, the core proposition, which is that meddling, social engineering, hardly ever works. It delivers short-term benefits.
Adverse consequences, which are, of course, unintended but unknown.
Also, the solution... So they're going to prioritise energy to young people and old people. I understand getting it to old people. They probably fought in a war, all right, or they watched it on...
young people and Nesh, they couldn't cope with the reduction in the...
We're in this problem because of young people. Always Greta Thunberg's been like, oh, we need to go net zero. We need to stop developing our energy sources. Man, we should be burning young people. We should cut them open like a tauntaun in Star Wars and climb inside to stay warm.
Young people have all got big, thick puffer jackets. And woolly hats that they pull down over their silly faces.
But this could bring the nation together, though, couldn't it? The images it creates would bring the nation together in a rather heartwarming
3 generations all coming back to live in the same household, and snuggling up under a blanket.
Candles, and it might, of course, induce another decade of Thatcherism. Who knows?
This from the Independent might increase the child generation rate as well, of course, which is something that the country desperately needs. This is from the Independent. Sunak has spoken out after the controversial invasion comment. I say controversial. But possibly, you might think otherwise. Leo.
Well, the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, came under fire for claiming there's an invasion by migrants on England's south coast. And Rishi Sunak has told his cabinet that the UK will always be a compassionate, welcoming country. I mean, it will for a bit until it becomes too much. I mean, there is a pretty crazy amount of cross-channel migration, like 1,000 a day. There's been 40,000 this year so far. Only like Calvin messaged me the other day and he said only 20,000 Albanians till Christmas.
I'm sure the monks of Lindisfarne were welcoming and
absolutely. The Anglo-Saxon invasion wasn't a military invasion in any sense.
It was a farming invasion. It was a migration, just looking for people looking for a better quality of wife.
And what's happening here is we've got huge issues. So we've got so many people coming across. It's costing the government £7 million a day to house them.
Almost exactly the same amount, funnily enough, as the £2 billion hole that the Kwasi-Kwarteng budget created is now dedicated to housing.
Absolutely. So, it's a real significant amount of money. But a lot of them are not asylum seekers. They're so apparently 2% of the adult male Albanian population has come across this year.
Exactly.
Albania's not a war.
Why can we not practically return people to Albania? I don't understand the process and why that's an important.
The Guardian and left-wing people will scream that that's racist against Albanians, and it's terrible.
I don't think it's that simple, is it? I don't know.
I grew up in St Albans, and I I assume that is their natural home, that they're all sort of zeroing in back on Saint Albania.
Well, a lot of them have got cars waiting to pick them up, because amongst the people who are just coming to try and get jobs and work and stuff, there are criminal elements. There's a lot of Albanian gangs working in the drug trade in the UK. I mean, it's good news. You're going to have cheaper cocaine for Christmas, but bad news, in terms of violence and crime and possible other.
Well,
it's
part and parcel of life in a big city, isn't it?
Well, you can say that. I don't think we have to. We don't have to generate waves of crime.
And maybe we could do something parcel of living in Folkestone as well.
It's a bureaucratic failure. Above all else, though, isn't it? It's another bureaucratic failure.
Yeah, it is.
Failure to process. Yeah. And if the government can't effectively do things simply bureaucratically, then that's a profound failure of government.
Definitely, what is happening, I say definitely, but my strong sense is that the population are, to a greater or lesser extent, losing faith in the government's will to do it, their capacity to do it, even beginning to suspect that there may be a secret agenda and there's a reason why they're not doing it that's not being discussed, because it does not seem to actually be that complicated.
Yeah, and what's interesting is the left, they're not saying what they do to solve the issue, because it would be an intractable problem for Labour, a worse problem for Labour, because they wouldn't, it would be very unpopular with their followers to actually deal with it properly. So they focus on the language. They focus on Suella Braverman saying invasion, when really, I mean, it's not far off. Using that as a sort of word for a large volume of people coming to another country.
Number 10 have rowed back on that language.
Rowed back is also an offensive term. Tell you, Roger.
Very good.
We have to move on. Financial Times next. And UK house prices have fallen for the first time. Maybe these migrants will give the boost to the housing market. I don't know. But this is the housing market in decline now, Roger.
Well, they won't solve the apparently underlying shortage of housing stock, which fuels the year-on-year increase. This is the middle-class nightmare made real. There finally being some dip in the housing market, caused, of course, by the recent rises in interest rates, which might or might not lead to a crash. It's very, very hard to say. The Nationwide are predicting the possibility of a soft landing, but then there's other...
You wouldn't want to buy a house with a soft landing, would you? That would be a bad sign. Probably a bit of dry rot.
Fall over when you went to the toilet.
You'd need some Albanians in to mend that. Samuel Toombs, economist at the consultancy Pantheon Macroeconomics. I've never heard of him or them, obviously.
Pantheon Macroeconomics. They sound a bit fly-by-night.
Couldn't it? Of course, with a mobile phone.
Pantheon Macroeconomics. I'll just get him for you. Yes, I'm not just right here.
But he claims that this is the strongest signal yet that house prices will buckle. Matthew Poynton hopes that the mortgage rates will fall back significantly, and he says that hopes that mortgage rates will fall back significantly and quickly are misplaced. In other words, there are serious predictions of a proper decline.
Well, I think it's about time. I'm a homeowner, and I've got to be honest, it is my long-term pension plan. But even so, you've got to give people the occasional downswing, haven't you?
Well, it's
climb on board.
Of course, house prices as a percentage, as a multiple of average income, are mad, higher than they've ever been historically.
But because mortgages were so low, it was virtually immoral. You could own quite a decent house in London with a large mortgage. If you got on the ladder, you could have quite a large mortgage, and it would be more affordable than the rent you would pay on some horrible little studio apartment. But you have to get on. You have to have that point where you can jump onto the,
And
so
therefore,
really
for the younger generations and the aspiring, it's
so people of my age find their kids coming home to live with them again. So you end up paying sooner or later.
We're the lucky ones, of course, and recent quantitative easing has massively fueled that increase in the value of assets.
And that QE stole money from my savings and handed it to...
It totally did. It's a transfer of wealth upwards. There's been so much of that.
We still live in a situation in which the Bank of England rate, the interest rate, is ridiculously and massively below the inflation rate. In the 1970s, that wasn't the case, of course, so it's still unsustainably low.
I hope it'll meet in the middle rather than climb all the way up to 10%. I mean, that would be a bit
But logically, it has to be something similar.
It has to get close.
Something that might bring up house prices or cushion it a bit is the fact that we've got this high immigration. So 1.2 million visas were issued last year, plus we've got all the people who are coming without waiting for their visas. And they all need somewhere to live because they're not bringing houses with them.
Well, I strongly recommend Hampstead to them. Moving on, nice place on the Heath. Moving on to the Times. More accusations from Russia, Leo. Well, I say, it sounds like I'm being cynical about them, but I'm not entirely clear on this story myself.
So Russia has accused the UK of attacking the Nord Stream gas pipelines. As you know, there's several places
Bubbles.
where the pipeline was sabotaged. And so Dmitry Peskov, the Kremlin spokesman, said that there is evidence that Britain is involved in sabotage, a terrorist attack against vital energy infrastructure. Such actions cannot be put aside. Of course, we will think about further steps. So maybe once they're finished failing in Ukraine, they're going to fail to invade the Isle of Wight. He said the Kremlin would not present evidence to back up its claim, insisting that its defence ministry deserves trust. Oh my God, yeah. There's one defence ministry that deserves trust. It's surely the Kremlin.
They've pushed their luck there.
They're basing this on Liz Truss's personal phone was hacked, and they realised that they found that she sent a text message saying it's done to Antony Blinken, the US Secretary of State, soon after the...
It's alleged.
She was talking about a souffle that she was preparing. Could you let him know?
Yeah. And you've got to get them out at the right time.
Who knows what she was trying to write?
But there's no incentive for Britain to breach those pipelines. It's ridiculous.
But there are lots of other countries other than Russia who I believe were in that. I mean, initially, loads of people were going, oh, Russia have blown up their own pipeline. I thought that was a bit crazy as well. I mean, if I had to pick one, I wouldn't pick Russia.
But I think they're showing to the world what they can do, because since then they've attacked. There's a communications cable going to the Shetland Islands, so they attacked that, cut off Angry Birds and Candy Crush to the Shetland Islanders, and there are other communication cables that.
If this is plausible deniability, though, it's very flattering that Russia can plausibly suggest that the Royal Navy is capable of such an operation.
We haven't even got SEALs, have we? I don't know who we have. But anyway, it'd be interesting to see if Russia invade, if Braverman is allowed to describe it as such. Finishing this section with The Sun, and we're sticking with Russia. Putin is stuffed with steroids, Roger.
Wow. Well, yes, there's been speculation for some time about Putin's health. And supposedly, according to The Sun, new spy documents, only The Sun could refer to documents of that nature in such a way. According to leaked spy documents, it is confirmed now that Vladimir Putin does indeed have early-stage Parkinson's disease and pancreatic cancer. He's 70 years old, of course, so this could be a real death of Stalin moment. We don't know what's going to follow.
And they say they're basing it on he's looking a bit puffy, isn't that right?
He's looked puffy for some time. Gone are those long-lost calendar days.
Riding bareback on the bear.
A horse with his top off, or wrestling a bear, or
it's
shooting a Kalashnikov.
It's interesting, though, isn't it? I think there might be some truth to it, and I certainly wouldn't, dispute anyone who's got more medical experience than me, but it does seem it's like a bit, again, the double standards, because any time anyone was to complain about Joe Biden's state of health, for instance,
still fancy Putin's chances in a fight against Joe.
Well, I mean, for a start, Putin is still alive. It's at least some advantage.
And probably in charge.
Too, He's a street fighter.
And also, they say they think he has pancreatic cancer. Well, everyone over 60 has got pancreatic cancer. I mean, that's a reality. That's like saying he's a bit short-sighted. Anyway, that's all for part one. Coming up in part two, we have puberty blockers, only as a story, same-sex certificates, and an investigation into some real-life anti-Semitism. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation, This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GBNews.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
On Mark Dolan tonight, we have a simple plan, which is to inform, stimulate and entertain in equal measure. It's all about getting your opinions on the national television airwaves. I love my viewer emails, mark@gbnews.uk. So do join me every Friday, Saturday and Sunday for big guests, big opinions and a big presenter. 6'5", don't you know? See you then on GB News.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for The Briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, The Briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
And welcome back to Headliners. I'm Simon Evans. I'm still in the company of the ever-funny, questionably charming Leo Kearse, Roger Monkhouse. So let's get back to it. We are in Wednesday's Times now, and a strong percentage for a less strong standing in the States, Leo.
Yeah, so 80% of Americans say the nation is out of control. I mean, that's a huge number, a huge proportion. And this comes, just a week before the midterm elections that, could be very decisive for Joe Biden, who's, obviously overseen, pretty terrible economics. But, the thing that's putting people off the voting Republican at the moment is the fact that they've sort of introduced a de facto ban on abortion in a lot of places.
Right.
But yeah, almost all Republican voters said that America is in chaos, and a large majority of independents, 88% of independents, agree. And it's interesting, the split, the concerns of Democrats and Republicans are very different. So Democrats are horrified by, they're worried about democracy. They're horrified by the large number of Republicans who refuse to accept the result of the 2020 election. Whereas Republicans are worried about the economy. They're looking at the high petrol prices and mortgage rates and blame Biden for 8.2% inflation. So yeah, this could be very interesting. I mean, Biden, he came in and he really, apart from all the economic stuff, he's really sort of aligned himself with the radical left of the party. He's gone, full bore for, supporting riots and critical race theory and the gender ideology.
Law and order's taken a hit in Democrat cities as well. That makes a big difference.
It really has.
That's part of the same process. Arguably, the Democratic Party has been taken over by those of the far left. The support, for instance, of the Black Lives Matter, the defund the police movement, all of these things massively undermine what was perceived to be the established law and order of those cities.
It's interesting.
Stop people voting Democrat.
Yeah. Because if you look at Biden's campaigning for presidency initially in 2020, the whole point was we can reunite the country, which Donald Trump has proved enormously divisive.
He's failed to do that.
Utterly failed.
Absolutely.
It is interesting what you mentioned with the Roe v. Wade, with the Supreme Court deciding that Roe v. Wade was struck out as unconstitutional. What that did was devolve the right to determine abortion policy to the states.
Yeah.
If that means that people then don't vote Republican because they want their state to continue to offer, that would be a bit of an own goal, wouldn't it? Because the whole point of loading the Supreme Court was to overthrow Roe v. Wade, you know. But if you devolve, I don't know whether that'll happen. But I think always with British politics as well, people fail to take into account the lag. The reality is inflation was baked in by the time that Biden took office. I wouldn't blame him for that. To be honest, that was baked in by the...
You get blamed if your hands are on the wheel at the time. It's the same with Labour in 2008, and of course it was the same with when we dropped out of the ERM. I mean, these are just events, aren't they? And they happen. But whoever is in government at the time, of course, gets beaten up for it.
But out of control, that is like an apocalyptic term, isn't it? I don't think we ever get polled on that in this country, do we?
Yeah, questions in surveys can be suggestive, of course.
They can.
Is the country going to the dogs? Yes,
and the only survey
you should say that.
The only people who answer the survey are people who care passionately about it. So I guess they're more likely to have an extreme view.
Yeah, that is true. Sticking with the Times, it would be interesting, though, if America did actually split, wouldn't it? Because the trouble is, it isn't like left and right geophysically, is it? It's the middle and the coast. You would actually have to have like a big arch.
It'd be like Israel.
Yeah. Sticking with the Times, should British history take a backseat in the curriculum, Roger?
This is apparently from a speech at the Petworth Festival by Simon Sebag Montefiore, the historian, who has said that British students, school children, should learn more about world history to give Britain perspective and understanding. I'm slightly sceptical about this. First off, of course, you've got to say something when you're asked to deliver a speech in these circumstances.
I expect he's just got a book out about world history.
Undoubtedly.
And he's selling them at a table.
Undoubtedly. My daughter's
Children
14.
should learn more about penguins.
My daughter's 14. She's doing history for GCSE, and I'm always mortified by how relentlessly woke her curriculum is, you know. And the truth is, she likes kings and queens and what have you, and she doesn't particularly take to the study of the slave trade and empire and all the rest of it.
No, it's interesting. I mean, neither of ours did GCSE history, but one of them did a thing, I think it was called religious studies, or essentially religious education, something like that. And in fact, it was mainly about the Holocaust and the civil rights movement.
Wow.
There was nothing. I mean, these were like of serious, historical importance, but they were more like moral crusades or moral crimes that have been...
The issue is, with school children, of course, to just engage them and try and enlist them as historians. And then, of course, they can go on to study whatever they want to.
I will say this, though, in defence of Sebag Montefiore, and get your view on this. He might be... I think he was addressing a question, is it a good thing that children now are taught, like, all the evils of the British Empire rather than all the good things of the British Empire?
Yeah.
And he was saying, well, maybe the trick is to just teach them, like, all of history in context, so that you can see that the British Empire wasn't a unique attempt to colonialise, the developing world.
And that is the point that he's kind of making in this. There's this perception that, the evil done by the British Empire is unique. And it's not like all empires do. China's doing it right now, and nobody seems to mind.
Yeah, that's
Talking about all empires, though, unfortunately, it's asking a lot. And I think this is summed up beautifully by Dominic Sandbrook, who I rather like. He's written some excellent histories of the 50s, 60s and 70s. And he said, I think, rather wittily, a lot of children in Britain do 40 minutes of history a week. There's not that much time.
No, mind you, that never stopped the British, did it? But the British Empire supposedly was a crude or in a fit of absent of mind or something. Somebody said that.
Someone said that
something like that.
Yes.
40 minutes a week is more than enough. Anyway, on to Wednesday's Metro, anti-Semitism, and this is actually quite a serious and nasty story. And anti-Semitism in the National Union of Students, Leo.
Yeah, so there's been a report since May. There's been an investigation that's now culminated in this report into the president of the National Union of Students, Shaima Dalali. She's now had her contract terminated after the investigation has revealed, pretty egregious anti-Semitism. It's the first time a president of the National Union of Students has ever been dismissed, I believe, in 100 years of its history. So some of the stuff, they don't mention it in here because this is the Independent.
No, it's frustrating. I'm not clear from everything I've read what she actually did.
And in The Guardian, if you read the left-wing press, all they do, this poor woman, she's been subjected to Islamophobic abuse. Never mind, they don't mention what she actually did.
So you can judge for yourself.
She raised money for Cage, which is praised Islamic terrorists. That's some sort of charity organisation. She glorified the massacre of Jews in a tweet. I mean, it was from 10 years ago
or something, wasn't it? Wasn't there one from 680 AD or something like that?
Yeah, that's when the massacre happened, not when she tweeted.
Oh, right.
And she was also filmed yelling abuse at Jewish students. Really, really horrific stuff, a gang of people. So, she obviously, she's obviously done, terrible things, and is a terrible representative of an organisation that's supposed to be open to everyone of all, races and creeds. So she's now going to be working on an album with Kanye West. So looking forward to that.
Wednesday's Daily Mail now. Scotland's doctors are misdiagnosing quite severely, it seems, Roger.
Wow, yes. Well, I've got the trans rights activist baiting story for tonight. Evidently, this is from the Daily Mail, and this is Scotland's own Tavistock Centre, where apparently puberty blockers are being diagnosed to autistic and troubled youngsters who may have been misdiagnosed
as young as 9.
As young as 9, absolutely. Now, this is the Daily Mail, who do have a tendency to report these things as if they are, Nazi experimenters upon...
This kind of is like a Nazi experiment, though.
It does sound a lot like
puberty blockers, based on this bizarre gender ideology that everybody seems to have subsumed all organisations.
Maybe this is sort of part of the process and we'll reach a sane policy on such things. But, I mean, yes, you could imagine a time in the very near future when such practices are looked back on as simply child abuse.
Yeah.
I suppose the only...
I'd say next week.
The distinction between the Nazis and those running the Sandiford Clinic is I do genuinely believe that the intent is that these children...
Undoubtedly.
But the problem is that children at that age, they are very susceptible, aren't they?
Incredibly vulnerable. When I was 9, I wanted to be a tank commander.
Yeah. Well, you still
That's a bad example. I still want to be a tank commander. But
you kind of look like one.
Children change and should be allowed to change. Naturally, profoundly believe.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to criticise the Scottish Sexual Health Clinic. They've got a lot more dirt on me than I've got on them. And also, if there's a country where men can pass as women, it's got to be Scotland. Not just because the women aren't that attractive, but we invented kilts. That was the earliest known form of transitioning. But this is horrific. 9-year-olds being put in a medical pathway, and these children, the majority of them are autistic. They've got
a disproportionate number are autistic and depressed and troubled.
So they've got other issues other than gender dysphoria. Some of these issues might be manifesting themselves in gender dysphoria, and instead of being treated holistically, these people, like, if you've got a hammer, every problem's a nail. So this gender clinic, they're transitioning all of them, putting them on puberty blockers.
Puberty blockers are still experimental. We don't know the consequences.
Well, we do know that they can cause sterility, they can cause osteoporosis, they can cause all sorts of long-term issues.
And they probably don't cure autism.
Indeed they don't. And should this even be within the remit of the NHS? It begs a big question.
Ending this section now with Wednesday's Guardian and more progress with same-sex partnerships in Tokyo, Leo, a more cheerful gender story.
Yeah, so Tokyo is catching up with the rest of the, say, civilised world and is issuing same-sex partnership certificates. So this is for same-sex couples. It doesn't carry the same rights as marriage, but allows LGBTQ partners to be treated as married couples for some public services in areas such as housing, health and welfare.
It's the same sort of halfway house that we had for a few years before we brought in full equal marriage, I guess. So presumably that's... Can I say, though, I don't follow it. I'm a little surprised to find that Japan is so far behind the curve. I'd always thought of them as quite a I don't know, gay-friendly society, basically.
Well,
I don't know.
They're progressive in some ways, but not in others. They've got a very strange sort of sexual idea. They've got, like, or they certainly did 20 years ago. Not that I've been there, but I saw it in a documentary. Places where you can stand in a phone box across the road from a cafe and phone up pre-pubescent girls. And I don't know if it's to try and, like, solicit them for a gender clinic in Scotland, but yeah.
Genuinely, it's a very weird place, isn't it?
Yeah,
You know,
very
all of
you can buy used underwear from vending machines.
But all that, the anime stuff, you know, the kind of cartoon stuff that's slightly, a little bit sort of sexy, but sort
very
of like...
sexy.
But
you
in
get
quite...
explicit pornographic cartoons. It's really weird.
But also at the same time, what's the word? Androgynous? Slightly androgynous, you know, the features of them. I'd always assume they were quite up to speed with that, but I guess not.
But I think we're crass to assume that Japan and other cultures are indeed up to speed with all this. I'm reading at the moment a very English scandal about a Jeremy Thorpe business, a terrific book. And of course, it's only as recent, within my lifetime. 1965, homosexuality was legalised. 66, I can't...
The Wolfenden Report. And it turned out later his own son was homosexual. He didn't know that at the time. Isn't that interesting? Imagine the whole trajectory of British law on that issue, probably determined by some sort of subconscious desire to see his son sorted out.
It is outrageous, though, that we berate the rest of the world for not being up to speed on these things, when, in fact, only a generation ago we were...
I was saying half a generation ago, when David Cameron brought in the legislation to make same-sex marriage, and it was very controversial, trying to detoxify the nasty party. He was ahead of Barack Obama. Barack Obama was still against it when we brought that in, which seems extraordinary now. You can't picture Barack Obama speaking against such a thing, can you?
But America is a very religious place, of course.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all for part 2. Join us in part 3. Prince Harry's struggles with British citizenship. Surprise, surprise. Test yellow stickers in supermarkets are taken a little too seriously. Not by me. And Matt Hancock is going down under. Calm yourself, Leo. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akua, on Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today.
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Every Saturday at 2 o'clock, join me, Darren Grimes, for Real Britain. I'm not afraid to give you a platform and say it how it is.
Come on, make the case. Something like this is very, very important to people.
And we're always up for a laugh on this show.
God, honestly, you'd think there were no problems in the world.
Real Britain, every Saturday on GB News.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland, Wales
and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio
and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
And welcome back to Headliners. I am still Simon Evans. They are still Leo Kearse and Roger Manchaos. And this is our third and wacky section. Let's crack on with it. Wednesday's Metro votes for I'm a Celeb, Get Me Out of Here have never mattered more, Roger.
Bookmakers are already predicting that Mr. Hancock, will make history as the campmate nominated for the most trials, with Ladbrokes tipping him 1-2 on to break I'm a Celebrity records. Charmingly as well, this was very funny, I heard this on the radio earlier on, in Mr. Hancock's own constituency, Andy Drummond, Deputy Chairman of the West Suffolk Conservative Association, added, I'm looking forward to him eating a kangaroo's penis.
Yes.
Quote me. You can quote me on that. Isn't that
funnily
brilliant?
enough, I've read a couple of people discussing this in columns and what have you, and they've all mentioned that quote. And they thought, we absolutely will. Yes. I wonder who previously held the record. Have they previously? I don't watch it that often. Do they always have a hate figure? I don't know if they do.
I don't know.
No.
They would engineer one, surely. That's what happens. In the edit.
They had our colleague Andrew Maxwell on a couple of years ago, I remember, and he didn't last very long, surprisingly. I think he could. But anyway, yeah.
Well, Watch is on this one.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's interesting that he's on there because as a Tory being voted, is he actually going to leave? Because I mean, you vote for people, they get booted out. Then you don't vote for people, they get put in.
But the British electorate is sophisticated enough to keep him on there, so he keeps on eating.
Right.
Edging.
Is that what we were doing with Boris?
Yeah.
Is it called edging, isn't it? That's when you know, like when you're kept close to orgasm, but you don't. They'll be like, ooh. I honestly don't watch it, but I think I might break the habit of a life. Right? I would like to see him humiliated.
Well, Sean's really funny, so he'll be good in it.
Oh, he'll be brilliant. Yeah. And of course, the last time he's rescuing his reputation after his Strictly.
Oh yeah, that was so unfair. He got like a hard time for cheating on his girlfriend. But his Strictly partner was really hot.
Yeah.
Surely that's an excuse.
And I'd known for years his relationship was in trouble, but that's another story. Anyway, on to Wednesday's Times now, and you think being part of the British royal family might have helped you in this particular test, but apparently not, Leo.
So the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle, has said that the British citizenship exam was so hard that even the Duke of Sussex, that's Harry, could not answer some of the questions. I mean, that's one way of looking at it. Another way...
With both his own levels.
Yeah. Another way of looking at it is that Harry is thick and couldn't answer this. But I mean, Harry's the sort of the classic... Harry is classically British. He sort of embodies Britain at the moment. He used to be fun, and now he's completely joyless and hates himself.
But at least he has maintained an ignorance of our history, which I suppose is something...
More traditionally British than anything you could imagine.
I did notice that her podcast is called Archetypes, right?
Yeah.
But there was a little paragraph in the story, and it said, in her podcast Archetypes, the Duchess discusses... And I just thought, that's what she should call it, the Duchess discusses.
Yeah.
And they could have a little sort of Gilbert and Sullivan song to go with it. Anyway, have you been listening to it?
I haven't heard it, of course I haven't heard it. There's a lovely quote here, though, from Archetypes, which is, of course, Meghan, because apparently it's her talking relentlessly.
Yes.
Even though
At a guest.
she has all sorts of guests. It's all about her. And there's a lovely quote. That citizenship exam is so hard. I was studying for it, and I remember going, oh, my goodness. It's fantastic.
Well, you've passed then, Meghan. Wednesday's Telegraph now. And have you found yourself splooting during the perma crisis, Roger?
this is, splooting, which is a term I was oblivious of, is apparently when a dog splays its rear legs. And was particularly observed during the hot weather.
Is it like dog spreading?
Yes,
on the tube?
very much like dog spreading. I've seen dogs do it, but I've never seen it described as
I'd never heard the word. I've not heard permacrisis either.
I've not heard permacrisis, but it's self-evident.
We usually say omnishambles, but I suppose it's slightly different. That's everything
at
once.
Old now, of course,
yes, it is.
That's a decade or more old.
It was Tony, what's his name, the tall chap who wrote it for the thick of it.
For the thick of it, absolutely. It came from the thick of it, and then was gloriously quoted in Parliament.
And by Ed Miliband, I think, wasn't it?
And then there's a trend for people putting these portmanteau words together, swear words. It was really annoying, and you wanted to punch those people in the face.
I can't say them. There's one with puffing in and one with womble in, isn't
there?
Yeah.
And people thought they were all being dead clever because they did it. It's like, no, you
can only imagine why they
got a couple of words together.
I like permacrisis, though, especially because it references permafrost, which is, of course, one of the part of the permacrisis. Isn't it?
Turns out not to be so permanent.
Exactly.
That's a heartwarming thing, isn't it?
As the permafrost goes, the permacrisis arrives. Sticking with words, this time the slightly more explicit ones, Leo.
So swearing is useful if we want to make people laugh, help deal with pain, road rage, and express joy, a study has found. That must be why Glasgow is so happy.
Yeah.
So according to this study conducted by Keele, Ulster and Westminster universities, when swear words are used in solidarity or to express joy, it can be a powerful tool to lower pain and even deal with road rage. But you need to be careful. I mean, I don't know why they need to do a study around this. Apparently, they say if you swear around the wrong people, you can cause offence. I mean, thanks for that.
Goodness, are they actually spending money on us?
Yes.
I mean,
It
makes you want to swear.
It does.
Apparently. Extraordinary.
I do think, I mean, the departed Sean Locke used to have a great routine about this, wouldn't it? That sometimes swearing is important.
Yeah.
And somebody would say to him, there's no need to swear. And he'd go, no, there's every need to swear. This is exactly the situation for which swearing was invented.
This is hardly news, though. I remember reading years and years ago that when you hit your thumb with a hammer, you swear it genuinely has an anaesthetic quality.
And you have to, in that situation, you have to be a little bit creative, like give the saviour a middle initial or something, isn't it? Those kind of, to find out the middle name of Christ, just drop a block of concrete on your toes.
Always charmed by when I visit Scotland, for instance, Newcastle. Manchester arguably is similar to the Northwest. But swearing is a sort of rhythm thing, and it's part of speech. It's punctuation.
Well, they also
have
a
beautiful lyrical thing, to the point where you're oblivious of it and any offence that it might conceivably cause.
Yeah.
As well.
Billy Connolly, genius at swearing in that regard, and could swear in mainstream television. Could swear on Parkinson, and it would just feel perfectly normal.
Even know.
And then there was tomesis, which I didn't know. Have you heard that word? It's one of those words that, like mnemonic. It's got the TM, like there's no vowel in between them. Tomesis. Mm-hmm. That is where you insert a swear word into the middle of a word. Oh, yes. So absolutely, there's a word for that,
lovely.
and that's Greek. So I mean, that's clearly an ancient, rhetorical. Cicero himself. The senator swears. Wednesday's Daily Mail and controversy with some eye-opening lingerie posters opposite the children's toilet. I would imagine a bit of tomesis was caused by the side of this.
This is a raunchy lingerie shop. Is this in Sydney? Is that right? Sydney, Australia. Well, it's opposite some toy shops, apparently. So, you can imagine a whole family being entertained, potentially, on each side of the street. I'm always slightly put off, without being remotely puritanical about these things, by the displays in Ann Summers and such like that. I do find it rather tawdry.
Yes.
Especially when they attempt diversity. That's always grim. with modern body shapes.
Body positivity.
You don't want that at all. Oh, it's grim.
You don't want... I mean, I don't mind, the shops existing, but it would be much... In the old days, do you remember even betting shops just used to have blacked-out windows, didn't they? Or maybe a picture of a greyhound or something.
I used to occasionally pop into the sleazy, boarded-up places in Soho for entertainment, and it was always that much more gratifying and titillating because it was slightly seedy. And
there was always a telltale aroma.
And also this thing, I mean, having these displays across from the toy shop, it's going to ruin the surprise when when the kids go into school and have drag queen story hour.
Yes, absolutely. There's a time and a place for it. Absolutely. The library on a Saturday morning. Sticking with the Mail, this will be our last story, I think, for the evening. Reduced-priced yellow stickers. They are creating they're creating a space for violence, I believe.
Yeah, so Tesco is now using security barriers to keep staff safe from shoppers who are waiting to snatch the reduced price yellow sticker items from the staff's hands before they hit the shelves. This is, because of the cost of living crisis. I have noticed, and where we're situated, we're across from Marks and Spencer's. I sometimes go in there and I look for the yellow sticker stuff because that's affordable. That's like normal price. It's full price. I don't know who can afford full price Marks and Spencer's stuff.
I look for the biggest discount. If something's down for £3.80 to £3.20, I'm like, no.
You've got to pick your shop. Waitrose is great for reduced stuff. Marks and Spencer's great for reduced stuff. My local supermarket's Morrison's. It's very, very hard to compete for the yellow stickered items there and walk away with your dignity.
You don't get the bargain.
Literally fight.
But it's the same if I go, which I do.
The wheezy fat woman with a big trolley who has to lean against it, and they hang about certain times of the day. As do I on occasion when I've got the hours to. And wow, it becomes it's an industrialised process.
But I've noticed there's less yellow sticker stuff.
Yeah, I think it's a telltale sign as we go into winter. That is all we have time for. Thank you to my guests, Leo Kirst and Roger Monkhouse. Headliners will be back tomorrow with Andrew Doyle in the hot seat. Leo Kirst and Nick Dixon, his guests. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for watching. Good night.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News. I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News. We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
On radio.
And online.
we're proud to be
The People's Channel. Britain's
News channel.
hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late-night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
GB News produces conclusive evidence that too many of those crossing the channel are doing so to enter criminality in Britain. We debate tonight, will the government actually put a stop to this in the light of the evidence? Taxes. 6 weeks ago, the government were telling us taxes were coming down. Now they're saying they've got to go up. By how much? We'll ask Liam Halligan, our economics expert, that question, and we'll ask, are the top 1% of earners now being demonised? And as we move on through the programme and we get to talking pints, well, I can tell you, we've got somebody joining us, and Emma Webb, who is running the Society for Common Sense. Well, there isn't much of it about. Hopefully Emma will provide some. All of that after the news with Polly Middlehurst.
Nigel, thank you, and good evening to you. The top stories from GB News tonight. The suspect in the firebombing of a Dover immigration centre is reported to have been posting anti-Muslim rants on Facebook. Kent Police have named the man as 66-year-old Andrew Leake from High Wycombe in Buckinghamshire. He was found dead at a nearby service station after the attack. Counter-terrorism police are now leading the investigation. They say it was likely that the attack was driven by some form of hate-filled grievance. Meanwhile, migrants are being removed from the immigration processing centre in Manston in Kent. At least 2 full coaches have left as part of the Home Secretary's plan to relieve pressure on the facility. Around 4,000 people were thought to be housed at Manston, which was originally built to hold a maximum of 1,600. And the former Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, has had the Conservative whip suspended after signing up to a reality TV show. He's set to appear on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, with the Sun newspaper saying he's been confirmed as the 12th star to enter the Australian jungle. He resigned from the Cabinet in June last year after breaching guidance on social distancing. The series starts this Sunday, but Mr Hancock's expected to be one of 2 latecomers to join the camp. Now, ambulance staff in Scotland have voted overwhelmingly to strike over pay. 8,000 members of the GMB Scotland Union, working for the Scottish Ambulance Service and Greater Glasgow and Clyde Health Board, were balloted. It means nearly 4